My name is Elena Isayev. I'm an ancient historian and an archaeologist. And I guess what I do is I'm interested in how people communicate and relate to each other, and also what happens when they travel around a lot, and when they come into a community, what they find there, but also if you're living somewhere, what happens when new people come. One of the things I'm interested in is that how the material world subconsciously influences how you relate to that world. So both the landscape, the built environment, the natural environment, all really, really important and a big part of that. And archaeology is one of the ways we can get to the underside of history, if you'd like, as a different way of understanding how people experience the world. And the reason I turn to artists is it's about this kind of underside of history, of trying to understand how you feel about the place that you live in. And an artist can express that in a way that perhaps we, through just simply an academic questioning of the evidence, can't.
How did you go about structuring the research?
The research for the project, the original project called Deplacing Future Memory, was all about an experiment. It was about the question of, can we shift a bond between a memory and a place? So we invited a group of artists, archaeologists, literary critics, geographers, architects, musicians, dancers to come and join us and help us think about this in a workshop. And it was exciting because everybody brought all their talents, but also kind of the big questions that they had that some of us in other subjects hadn't even thought of.
I'm Catrin Webster and I'm an artist. In the initial Deplacing Future Memory project, I was invited along with another artist, Shauna McMullen, to come up with some visual processes that everybody could participate in to explore and record their experience of the place that we were in, which was Exeter. So as practitioners, we were kind of trying to bring in how we would work with the place and enable the other people who were more academically based to experience a kind of artist's working process, and in so doing reveal something different about the place that perhaps they were familiar or unfamiliar with.
What excited you about this project?
Oh, so many things. I mean, obviously attending all the papers, listening to the archaeologists, the historians, the political scientists, the drama people, and this building up in my head a different picture of place. It actually had a direct impact on my own work. It's really made me think, as Elena was saying, this sort of subconscious way, the other things, the other triggers about place that perhaps you don't consider when you're there. It gave me this kind of understanding, this sort of structural understanding about how we might relate to a place, which then in my own work manifested in completely reconsidering my drawing practice.
Well, this original project was kind of very theoretical and academically really oriented. And as because of the success and the excitement, a lot of questions we had, we thought we really want to do this with a wider community. And we were fortunate because we worked in the end with something like 2,000 different children, with about 800 of them very directly. We did lots of different journey exercises with them. The thing they found really exciting was working with Catrin and doing paintings and doing landscape paintings, which I think Catrin will tell you a bit more about.
One of the things that we did in the workshops was we, with the whole of the class, went out and did a very simple drawing of the landscape in a 360 degrees. So they went and they looked and they turned and they drew. And then they went inside and from memory filled in the other information. So they were using their memory in the drawing. So one was a very direct thing and the other was from memory. Then we put them in the post and posted them to Elena. So all their postcards went on a journey, and then we brought them back. So when they saw them again, there'd been this time lapse between the first time they saw them and the second time they saw them. And then we actually reproduced 1,000 postcards, individual images that the children had made, and we used them as the invitation. So then they got sent out to members of the public as well.
And the other big object type thing we focused on, which comes directly out of my own research in ancient history, is something called the Tessera Hospitalis. And what this is a little object, which could be in any shape. Lions, we got boars, we have lizards, and they're in two parts. And two people would have met at a sanctuary or something like the Olympics, thousands of years ago, decided they were going to become friends, and had an object made and their names inscribed on each half. Then they would go apart. 10, 20 years down the road, one of them might decide to visit the other one and takes his half, and they would match. We didn't tell the kids what these things were. They had to figure it out, and we gave them lots of archaeological objects to play with. Then we said, would you like to make one of your own like this? And they designed their own kind of versions of them, all sorts of shapes. We had footballs, we had football shoes, we had butterflies, we had hearts, we had glasses, music stands, you name it. And then we took their objects, and the Swansea Metropolitan University has a jet cutter, water jet cutter, and we cut them out of a massive piece of metal, which is sculptural. And there were probably about 400 of these pieces. And now what we've done is those objects, the children have the actual shape that they've designed. And the negative, if you'd like, is the sculpture that's at the National Waterfront Museum. So for now, or 10 years later, or 20 years later, they can come and fit it back into the space where it was cut out from.
And how did you use music? Was that your area?
Yes, I was very keen to bring music in because I've done quite a lot of work with musicians within my own practice. And I'd been developing this idea for a while about how you could relate visual colour to sound colour. And this idea of the tessera hospitalis, an abstract way of doing that would be try to think of a way that people could connect with the landscape. So your tessera isn't necessarily with another person, but is actually with the landscape that you're inhabiting. So we collected 1,000 different colours of blue with all the participants from the landscape. They went and painted and then I digitally recorded their images. And we then used these paintings as a sound score and worked with choirs in Swansea, Exeter, Aberystwyth and Borth, and translated the colours into sounds with the aid of a very good friend of mine who's Michael Ormiston, who's an expert in Mongolian overtone singing. And that sounds a bit left field, but the reason behind that is that the Mongolian overtone singing is derived directly from listening to the landscape. So the herdsmen in Mongolia are sitting in the hills, listening to the wind across the lake. We actually performed this live in Castle Garden. So the children's paintings were on the screen, the choir was in the square, singing the colours from the screen into the sort of Swansea air. So this tessera, this connection to place, the blue was there that the children had made, connecting literally into the sky.
In a way, it was kind of a dream project, which was to work with all these different people who are artists and architects and look at some big philosophical questions in a way that wasn't stressful, in a way where you really could have discussion. One of the things we found out about from the first part of the project is that the ephemeral way that people do communicate with their landscapes, I suppose, and that although what we have the result of, particularly in archaeology, is very much an investment in the landscape and the built environment, because it has to focus on that. Obviously, it's about materials. That we cannot just take for granted that because something exists in a permanent form, that there is a permanent bond that is attached to it.
Could you sum up, Catrin, what this experience has meant to you?
Oh my goodness! I mean, it's had a profound effect on me as a person. In terms of my own work, it's been incredibly influential. I think it's just been an amazing opportunity because it's so rare to have that, a proper, true collaboration with the musicians, with the choirs, with the children, with the community and with the academics, so that everybody's on an equal footing and everybody's as important as each other. It's rare. That would never happen in any other context without the Beyond Text funding, because it's coming from that academic drive, and that's what's given this the structure and the integrity, and it wouldn't have happened without them.